The BOI Fashion Fund came up as a result of our quest to really make a significant developmental impact on the Nigerian society. So we've been looking at what's the best way to really make an impact. You know, there's been so much talk about SME financing. Our research, globally, shows that the best way really is to not use one size that fits all, but to be able to identify clusters of SMEs that are in similar businesses, similar products, that we can, analyze them and understand the business very well, so that we're able to tailor our lending criteria to the specific requirements of that particular cluster. So we adopted what we call the cluster approach, to SME financing. A cluster is essentially a collection of, or a network of, either related businesses or businesses in the same sector. Now, under this cluster approach, we've identified about 34 clusters now. And what we're doing is basically to take them one cluster at a time and to design products, specifically for that cluster. So far we've done a product for agro processing, for small scale agro processors. We've done a product for Nollywood, which is called Nolly Fund. And now today we just launched a product for the fashion industry, which is called Fashion Fund. The whole idea is very simple. We believe that this is the only way to really ensure that the SMEs get the right kind of support, get the right kind of loans that are structured to fit the dynamics of their business. And we'll continue to do this. We're going to take clusters like the furniture. We're going to look at clusters like aquaculture. We're going to look at a lot of, like I said, we have about 34 clusters already identified nationwide, and we're going to cover each one of them. By the way, this is a methodology that has been successfully utilized in other countries, especially in India, where they have hundreds of clusters that have been developed and have helped to really create millions of jobs and also add value to the economy.
All right, you mentioned that you had to take a look at other countries. You had options to look at their own approach to funding of industries. Now, what informed your decision taking the cluster approach to funding industries in Nigeria? Was it as a result of seeing that these countries had the same sort of demographics with Nigeria, or what informed that?
We actually went through a lot of research, a lot of debate, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of really deep thinking, before we came up with this cluster approach, looking at what are our own strengths and weaknesses as a country. So, for instance, if you take India, is the second largest in terms of population in the world after China. And quite frankly, until recently, they were also like a developing country. India only transformed only in the last 10 to 15 years. And one of the things we found that is that their development bank, the Development Bank of India, actually adopted the cluster approach, to really make a lot of impact in the SME sector. We also looked at the Chinese model, but the Chinese model, which is the use of industrial parks, we realized that we just do not have enough resources. It will call on sufficient resources from the state to be able to implement the industrial park model of China. So we had to settle for this cluster approach, because what you find is that Nigerian SMEs are doing a lot of self-help already. So they already exist in one form of, cluster or the other. All they just need is a little bit of support, to really take them to the next level. And that's why we're here. It's also an approach that is suitable for our own risk management, because what that means is that we are not just doing an SME product for everybody. So we look at, if you are a fashion business, we look at the peculiarities of fashion industry, and we design our risk management criteria to suit that particular sector. So this is what we went through, and that's why you are seeing the third cluster being addressed today. Agro-processing was the first, second was Nollywood, and now we've taken fashion. And I'm just putting you on notice that this will be a series. So you can say this is number 3 in the series. So we are going to have number 20, we are going to have number 30, and so on and so forth, until we've really covered all the relevant, critical SME sectors in Nigeria. We are at the BOI, we see ourselves as being on a mission. The mission is we want to develop this country. We want to make an impact. We want to create value. Any SME that's operating in the risk sector, BOI is here to support them.
You must have seen how passionate these designers were earlier in the day at the launch, and how passionately they expressed their desire to see change in that industry. Now, I'd like to know, what do you expect to see that this fund, this 1 billion naira, would achieve in that industry? Something you look at some years down the line and say, that's exactly what we had in mind.
The vision that we have for Nigeria's fashion industry is such that, so first, Nigerian fashion designers, we have their designs not only exhibited in international shows, but actually worn and sold in all the fashion outlets in the world. I'd like to see Nigerian dresses, Nigerian labels in high street shops in London, in Paris, in New York, in Tokyo, everywhere. And it's not impossible. The Nigerian designers have shown a lot of creativity. Many of them have been trained in some of the best fashion schools in the whole world. And what they really need is the capacity to be able to meet the orders, that may come their ways by virtue of the exposure that they've now begun to enjoy. So for instance, if the average fashion designer in Nigeria gets an order for 2 million pieces, they can't fulfill it. That's the truth. And I think one of the things we agreed to do to be able to empower them to do that is to set up a fashion production hub where all the relevant skills, all the relevant production capacities will be assembled, and all the designer needs to do is to come with your design, and you have the machinist, you have all the various people who are required to be able to put the pieces together, and you can actually produce the volumes that you require to be a truly international fashion business. That is what BOI is looking